All right, CNT125, Secure Design Lab. We just got done configuring the router with our sub-interfaces and our NAT, so make sure you save. We're now going to take our two workstations, and I've actually taken both my workstations. I have my left PC at my table being my VLAN 10 PC. I have it plugged into port 1. I configured it to these settings, okay? Now make sure, let me go here real quickly. Make sure when you configure network and sharing, Ethernet 3, make sure you have the correct IP, correct subnet mask, correct gateway, and don't forget your DNS. Do not forget to plug in DNS. We're using 8888. That is Google's DNS, so we do not have to configure a DNS server is what it amounts to. We're configuring everything else. We're just going to pass any DNS requests to Google. So don't forget that. Don't forget your gateway correctly, and don't forget your DNS. Once you've done that, and I actually did it on my other PC and tested already, I just configured it here. I'm going to open my browser, and I'm going to try going to a place like Google, or I'm going to try going to a place like Hack. I'm picking on both of those because those are web servers outside the college. So I should be able to get them. If I do not, this had better work. If it does not, go back and start with, check your IP settings like I just showed you here. Oftentimes that's usually the case. We forget DNS. So make sure all of that is correct. Okay. Make sure all of this is correct. When I'm done, try it again. If it still does not work, the next thing I would try is cabling. Check your cables. Make sure things are in the correct port. Try it again. If it still does not work, we'll now need to check your switch for your VLANs correctly and your trunking correctly. Check that. Then try your test again. If it still does not work, we need to go into the router and make sure, we're going to make sure our sub-interfaces are correct. Okay. Let me scroll down here just a little bit. We need to make sure the outside interface is set for DHCP and IPNet outside. We need to make sure the inside interfaces are correct and we have IPNet inside. And then we're also going to check these two here, the access list here, and then the overloads here. And again, we would correct anything that's there and then try your test again. Okay, so it might be a little bit of troubleshooting we need to do, but those are the things I would try in pretty much that order. Okay. Now that I have both working, we're going to do a couple tests. We obviously can browse. That should not be an issue. We're going to test to make sure that can we still do Telnet and SSH kind of thing. Okay, because we haven't filtered anything. So I'm actually going to open up a new PuTTY session. I can do that. I'll open up a Telnet here, and I'll do my telehack.com. And I should be able to access Telnet through Telehack, and I can. Okay, I'll close that. That's not being filtered. I'll open up a new PuTTY session, this time to SSH. This time we're going to plug in the IP address of our router, our 192.168.32.1. That's the gateway on this PC. We'll say open. We'll accept the certificate. We're going to log in. I'm using my first name for my username, and I'm using password for the password. Enable, I'm going to use class, and I'm into my router. Okay, I'm into the router through an SSH connection. Here's the console back here using the serial port. Here's my SSH right here. Okay, so my SSH is working, my Telnet is working, my browsing is working, my DNS is working, all that is working correct because we filtered nothing. So now that all that's working, and try it on both PCs, make sure everything is functioning, we're now going to filter some traffic. But we're going to take it one step further than we did in the firewall. The firewall, we just put a general rule in to block Telnet and block ping. We are now going to be more specific. We are going to put a rule in, and let me get my browser out of the way. Let me get back to my network map. We're going to allow the employees to do pretty much whatever. They're going to be our test subjects, if you will. They're our control if you're a science person. But the visitor VLAN, we're going to start blocking stuff on them. That way we can see the difference between the employee and the visitor. We are going to put some rules on for only that subnet. And again, that's one of the reasons we did this whole VLAN, sub-interface, all this kind of work we've done. We now can treat these two groups differently. In this case, we're going to filter the visitors more than we're going to do the employees. So we're going to put an access list in the router that filters on the visitor VLAN subnet is what we're going to do. So I'm going to go to my router here. I'm using my serial connection that I have. Let's do config T, and we're going to put in an access list. This time we're using a number above 100. Above 100 gives us the extended access list, which gives us more variables, more features, more options we can use. So we're going to do access list 101. Okay. Oh my goodness, I can't even type today. Here we go. Access list 101. And my syntax is I do permit or deny, the protocol I want to work with, source network, destination network, and then any specific type of port that I need to do. Okay? So I'm going to start denying. I'm going to say deny, and I want to deny Telnet and SSH. Well, Telnet and SSH both belong to TCP. They both use TCP. So we're going to say deny TCP as opposed to UDP. And we're going to say from the visitor VLAN subnet, 168.64.0. That is our visitor VLAN, 64.0. Again, that's one of the reasons we go to all the trouble to put all these numbers out on our map. So we're going to say we're going to block from the 64.0 subnet, and we're going to use the inverse mask. That way it knows what part of the address to pay attention to, what part to ignore. So we're going to use the inverse mask again, 0, 0, 31, 255. And this basically says, pay attention, and then up here, the first part of this octet, pay attention to the subnet piece. All the ones out here are ignore. It's like whatever the host is, don't care. Okay? We're then going to say to any network. So this is the source here. Any indicates any network as the destination. We could be specific, but we're going to say you can't do it at anywhere. And then we're going to say equal to 23, port 23. This is one of the reasons back on 120 we had you learn some port numbers. So that says deny telnet. We're going to hit the up arrow, and we're going to make the next one 22 for SSH. Everything else stays the same. We're just going to make it SSH. Okay. Again, one of the reasons we learned port numbers way back in 120. We're now going to, and these are two deny lines, and now we're going to do the permit. And this will be just like the firewall that we did. Access list 101, permit IP from any network to any network. If we think about the firewall rule we did in GUI, where we drug the command lines around to get them in the correct order, we're entering them in the correct order here on the router. It's much easier to do it this way in order on the router. It's hard to drag these around. So we're doing the two denies, and then we're going to permit anything that's left. So we're applying the same logic we did in the firewall. Okay, well, we've created the access list, and if I do a show run, I'll see it. I'll see it down here. But I haven't applied it anywhere. It's created, but I haven't applied it. Here it is right here, 101. Oops. So we now need to apply this. Well, again, I only want to filter the visitors. So I want to apply it on the visitor VLAN subinterface. I don't want to put it on the employee, and I don't want to put it on the admin, and I don't want to put it on the outside. I just want to filter the visitors. So I'm going to put it on the visitor VLAN subinterface. Okay? So I'm going to select that subinterface and put it there. So here we go. We're going to say config T, interface, oh my goodness, interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0/0.20, that subinterface. Oh my goodness. Mr. Brown, come on, get with the program here. Okay, here we go. Interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0/0.20 for that visitor subinterface. We're now going to say, hey, take this access list 101 and apply it on this interface. We're going to say IP access group 101. So take all those commands that we created, take all these 101 commands that we created, and apply them to this interface, and we want it on the in. Okay. Think about when we talked about this, when we reviewed Chapter 11. We are creating a rule here, almost like putting a security guard on this side of the router as opposed to this side of the router. We want the security guard sitting here and checking the traffic coming into the router. Not coming out, because coming out the traffic would be going this way. We want the security guard to check the traffic coming into the router. So it's going to sit here on this interface, this sub-interface, and it's going to check the traffic coming at it, towards it, so into it. And now it's going to filter that traffic coming in to that interface. So if I take a look at my config now, I'll see here, under the 20 sub-interface, I see the IP access group 101, and the security guard is checking that traffic coming into that interface, okay? So now any traffic coming into that interface is going to get filtered, and these things are going to get filtered. We're going to have Telnet and SSH blocked. So what we're going to do now, I'll do a copy run start here so I don't lose what I got. There we go. You can do it. So now that that's been applied, we're going to do some tests. So for both PCs, VLAN 10 and 20, both VLAN 10 and 20, we haven't done anything to HTTP or DNS traffic. So if I open my browser and I go to browse to Google or Hack, that should work on both PCs. So make sure you do it on both. Secondly, Telnet. Well, right now I'm sitting on a VLAN 10 PC. So Telnet should still work here. Okay, I'm on an employee PC right now. So I should be able to go to telehack.com. Oh, if I can type. Okay. I should be able to go there, and I can. And I should also be able to do SSH on this guy as well. Because again, I'm sitting on the employee PC right now. SSH 192.168.32.1, because that's the gateway. And again, I'm hitting the router, I'm getting my login for SSH. So none of the employee PCs are getting filtered. As I try this on my VLAN 20 PC, which is my other one, I can't record it right now. As I try this, I should get timeout. And as I try my SSH, I should get timeout. And that lets you know that the filtering is happening for the visitors, not for the employees. So do those tests. Do those tests. When we come back in the next podcast, we'll do our Nmap.